for organizing this. This is very important we get the word out. Now, the first rule of any Marxist revolution is that rules are fine if they advance the cause or cripple the cause's opponents, which is part of advancing the revolution, but they can be discarded the minute they get in the way. That's the way America's Marxists, socialists, and many liberals have operated when it comes to the Constitution, especially the First Amendment. Here's the relevant portion of the actual text. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. When they were eager to legalize pornography and obscenity and destroy community standards, the left's attorneys, spearheaded by the ACLU, emphasized a no exceptions view. What the founders intended as protections for ideas, the ACLU turned into a get out of jail free card for pornographers, even for people who possess child pornography. Did you know the ACLU is against any laws of convicting people for possession of child pornography? They say, oh, once it's produced, it's okay. They're against producing it, they say, but they're not against creating the market for it. But how dare anyone anywhere restrict speech? It would be unconstitutional, they say. Now, the left has abandoned its earlier stance in favor of no-holds-barred First Amendment freedoms. Even the ACLU does come down on the right side occasionally, but all too often they ignore blatant suppression of speech, especially speech involving the pro-life movement or those defending marriage and family. They've also redefined civil rights. They've moved beyond immutable characteristics like skin color or actual constitutional protection accorded to religion in the First Amendment. They've expanded it to include volitional behavior that has moral implications. This is totally different from the original conception of civil rights. In doing so, they've transformed civil rights into a battering ram against morality. Now, we've heard about communist infiltration of America's campuses, but what about the newsrooms, since we're at the press club? Right now, they're full of people who honestly believe America needs to be taken down and replaced with a socialist, pansexual, entirely secular regime that brooks no dissent. Studies abound about the media's leftist bias, but all you have to do is switch on CNN or pick up the Washington Post. Here's a classic example. This is about a nun who was the president emeritus of a 220-year-old Catholic preparatory school, who wrote a letter saying, hey, we ought to include same-sex announcements in the alumni magazine. Totally against Catholic doctrine, totally against Christian views of sexuality. Here's the run-over headline the Post chose. Nun chooses love over church doctrine. No quote marks. That's the Post editors talking. They honestly believe that whatever the church says about sex and marriage is just a matter of hate. It's the opposite of love. From Marx and Engels on, the destruction of the two pillars of society, family and church, have been a core mission. This mission became central in the mid-20th century because the workers of the world didn't rise up and unite in terms of economic upheaval. So Antonio Gramsci, who was mentioned earlier, Herbert Marcuse, the Frankfurt School, all saw that a sexual revolution, including educational indoctrination and media propaganda, could lead to political revolution. And that's why the left has embraced pornography, abortion, homosexuality, same-sex marriage, and now transgenderism. Failure to embrace any part of this signals you out for punishment. It all works against a family-based culture whose members are not as likely to fall for the left's siren song of forced redistribution. Strong families produce strong, independent people. As families weaken, so does the church, where families are part of the foundation, and where people learn a different gospel from that of Karl Marx. I can't read that. What's that say? It's so light. 1 minute left? Whoa, okay. Okay, one of the most effective tactics of the left is to coin new words, seize control of the language, and then use it to criminalize opposition. That's why abortion became choice. Reparative therapy for people with unwanted homosexual inclinations has been recast as conversion therapy, which conjures up images of electric shock and techniques that they don't use. They just sit down and talk with people. The Equality Act, which Democrats just passed in the House on Friday, is a motherlode of politically correct usage that can be turned into tools of persecution of Christians and others who won't go along with the left's ever-shifting sexual regime. Now, how did the media get so dominated by the Marxist mindset? Easy. They weed out anybody who disagrees with it. And they have a steady supply of young journalists fresh out of college where they've been brainwashed by Marxist professors. When I was an editor at the Los Angeles Times, I saw a difference in the 7 years I worked there. The interns came in reliably liberal, but by the time I left, they were outright activists who thought balancing a story with both sides was a betrayal of their calling. In most newsrooms, there are no enemies to the left. In fact, 3 of the full-time staff members in the Times Orange County newsroom in which I worked had worked for the New China News Agency. That's the English language Communist Party newspaper. They didn't have any problem with that. Meanwhile, I hit a ceiling when my leftist boss found out I'd written an article for National Review magazine. When I told her that the Times staffers had written for many leftist publications, such as Mother Jones and Ramparts, she said, "That's different." So I asked, "How is it different?" And she glared at me and said, "It just is." Freedom of the press is great, but only as long as the press marches to the left. Thank you.